Hey ladies, if you've ever struggled with thoughts about your body, thoughts about, am I eating enough, the right foods? I don't even know what healthy is anymore. I want to invite you into a private consultation with me. Yes, I'm your podcast host, but I'm also a certified health coach, a certified life coach, and I specialize in intuitive eating. I would love to talk more about where you are in your health, what your desires and goals are for it, and find out if working together is the best step for you. All you have to do is go into the show notes, click book a consultation, pick the time and date that works for you, answer a few questions to apply, and the rest is up to me. I'll give you that call. We'll talk. It's all about you and meeting you exactly where you are. I look forward to talking. Hey ladies, welcome to episode 73. Do you ever feel like you're living in Groundhog Day? No, I mean like it's the same day over and over again. Yeah. If you're listening to this in real time, it is Groundhog Day. Let's talk about it.
Welcome to the Health, Life, and More for Women podcast with certified life coach, mom of four, and just all-around lover of all things 80s, your host, Jennifer D'Amato. Buckle in. Let's get started.
I don't know where you live and you're listening to the podcast from, but Groundhog Day growing up on the East Coast in Massachusetts was a big deal. No, not from Pennsylvania, but close enough where I can distinctly remember as a child the news being on in the morning to see Punxsutawney Phil come out and see his shadow or not. I mean, it's a real thing. I don't know where you live and you're just like, okay, I see it on the calendar. I know people talk about this, but it was a big deal. It's not a big deal in Arizona, even a little bit. But it's still on the calendar. It's still a day. It really is just a fun tradition. You know, I don't believe a groundhog seeing its shadow or not determines if we have more winter or not. I just don't think that's how it works. However, it also made for an excellent movie. You may have seen the 1993 film with Bill Murray. It's probably one of my favorites. My kids have seen it. I think it's freaking hilarious. The premise of that movie, of course, is that it's Groundhog Day repeatedly. And really, of course, we know Bill Murray's character needs to have this evolution, have this learning take place, and really shift things about himself. However, I want to look at Groundhog Day a little differently here on the podcast. My question is, are you living in Groundhog Day? Who or what are we allowing to dictate our life? Okay, so think about this with Groundhog Day. There's again, it's for fun, but there's this idea, if a groundhog sees its shadow, then there's more winter coming, right? I think that's the idea. No shadow. No, that's the opposite. Regardless, we're letting a groundhog tell us if there's more winter coming or not. See, I can't even keep up with it. I'm assuming if he sees his shadow, there's not going to be winter because the sun's out and it's providing the shadow. I don't really know. Again, it's this silly tradition, but I'm wondering how that plays into our life. It's so silly that a groundhog would dictate these things. But are we living in that space? Is something external from you dictating your life to live on repeat? I wonder. Take a moment. Maybe this is that pause in the podcast moment of, am I doing that? Is there something outside of me that I'm allowing to dictate what my life looks like on a day-to-day basis? A lot of people wonder why there's a midlife crisis. I think part of the problem becomes we live this repetition. We're letting these external forces, something or someone even, dictate that our days literally look the same day after day after day after day. It's no wonder we hit our limit in our 40s, in our 50s. Somewhere along the line, we hit a limit. We have been letting other things dictate what our day looks like. Everyone has different limits. And actually, everyone has different limits on what they would allow to penetrate that far. You see people quitting their job, changing careers, and you go, "What are you doing? You are in your 40s. You can't do this." Except they hit their limit. They had been living Groundhog Day for 20 years, for 30 years, and they had had enough. You've seen marriages that feel like Groundhog Day. There's no excitement. There's no getting to know you as you've evolved and changed. And your marriage feels like Groundhog Day. It's the same thing day after day, month after month, year after year. I'm done with it. And either you emotionally check out or you full on leave. It's because we've allowed this Groundhog Day principle to become how we live. Something else is dictating our life, not us. It's the same thing day after day, and we just sit back and let it happen. What if the groundhog didn't dictate winter or spring coming? What's your groundhog dictating the seasons of your life? Now, maybe you're like, "Jen, I totally cannot relate to this. I don't even know what you're talking about. Groundhogs and me, and I don't get it." Maybe you haven't gotten there to a place where you feel like, "I'm living Groundhog Day. My life's on repeat. There's nothing exciting, nothing new. I feel just blah." That's okay. Maybe you are in a place where you are like, you have the advantage of preventive Groundhog Day. If you're not feeling that way, what could you even put in place right now so that you never experienced Groundhog Day? That you didn't feel like, "Oh, I'm just living the same day over and over again and nothing ever changes." What could you do? Maybe you've been putting off that vacation. You've been putting off that career change. Maybe the idea of that scares you. You're not in that place and you're like, change careers? Well, what would I do? Have you asked yourself that question? And maybe it's not that you'll need a full career change because you're not going to live in the Groundhog Day, but maybe there's something of yourself, a gifting you have, you want to give out to the world now. You have the power to stop living in Groundhog Day. You have the ability to make changes, little ones, big ones, right now. Like I said, you might not be at that place where you're like, changing careers, like that's not something I'm going to do. Like I can't even relate to what you're saying. But if you haven't lived year after year not using a gifting, if you haven't lived year after year not feeling appreciated in the work you do, then yeah, you might not see that. But what can you do now so that you never actually even get to that place? Take a moment and visualize yourself 10 years from right now. And you're living in Groundhog Day. You're living in a space where your days are exactly the same. You're living in a space where someone else or something else dictates your life, the season of your life. 10 years from now, that's exactly how life has been. I don't know about you, but that gives me a physical reaction. Like I can feel it in my gut coming all the way up. My arms are flailing. Nope, can't do it. I've seen what happens when people live in Groundhog Day and day after day becomes the same, something external's dictating their life. The end result is not pretty. The end result sometimes is even filled with things like guilt and shame. Because when you're in that space and you all of a sudden think back to that 10 years ago, 20 years ago, why didn't I change something? Why didn't I stop that or do this thing or step into that? What was I waiting for? Bill Murray in that movie does have this crazy shift, but to get there, he tried everything he could. He was doing insane things and, some normal behavior. Like, I'll make a small adjustment here, or I'll put a freaking toaster oven in the tub, kind of crazy. Like, the man was losing his mind because he was living day after day the same day. But he made the adjustments and changes. He took control and dictated Groundhog Day for himself. He dictated what the day would look like. It was actually in that process that he made that change, that he evolved, that he moved forward in his thinking. So I'm wondering, are you living in Groundhog Day? Is something else dictating how you're living your life right now? Do you feel completely empowered that you have control of your day, of what it looks like, of the season that you're in? Maybe you need to identify the groundhog. It could be a job. It could be a person. It could be a situation. What's the groundhog? Because if it's not you, then what is it? What are we giving permission to dictate our life? All right. I know this one could seem out there, but it is Groundhog Day. As I'm recording this for you, Tuesday, February 2nd is Groundhog Day. What better topic to talk about on Groundhog Day than Groundhog Day? I hope that the questioning, the thoughts, this process gets you thinking. I feel like we've spent the last couple of episodes on the podcast digging a little deeper into ourselves, into where our life is, into where we want to move, if we want to move at all, and now into what's dictating our day. What does our day look like? What empowerment from episodes 72 and 73 can you grab for yourself? Maybe this year is the year you make that big change. Or maybe it's the year you made those subtle little changes that change everything 10 years from now. Either way, evaluate. Are you living in Groundhog Day? Maybe you've identified your groundhog and you're ready to go. All right, ladies, until we meet again next week. Hey, ladies, I can't tell you what it means that you come here every single week and listen to the podcast. Would you do me a favor? If you're listening on Apple, head down to the review section, leave a star review, and if you leave a written review and your review is shared here on the podcast, I'm sending you a thank you gift. The Morning Motivation Journal right to your doorstep, so you can start every day with motivation, gratitude, energy, nourishment, and set priorities for the day. Pause now, head down, leave a review. Thanks in advance.